My goodness, I blinked my eyes and drove right through Tucson. Actually, kind of wanted to stop and drive through it a little bit. It's one of the areas I'm looking to find my next real estate project at. But I'm on my way to San Antonio. I like San Antonio. You know, it's continuously over since COVID has been, you know, floating up towards the top 10, and was just recently said that it's the fastest growing city in the United States. And you know, that all changes. You know, everybody's got trends come and go, and people pack up and move areas, and then they find out what they thought was for them really wasn't for them, so then they pack up and move back. But I'm looking for my next real estate project, and the playlist that I'm creating, the Hard Knock State Home Rehab, I'm going to teach you how to make a little bit of extra money by finding the right house to buy, especially if you're just starting off in the rehab or remodeling gig and want to fix it up and flip it for a profit. You know, going into a project and just starting with a big, you know, 3,000, 4,000 square foot house, you know, it's going to need a lot of work. I think unless you're already a millionaire, you know, that's a good high risk and a good way to lose your bankroll. But you know, you start small, you can make good profits if you find the right place. I've been looking at houses for a while. I just recently sold my personal residence in Washington, and not only am I looking for a place to, you know, buy a house to fix it up and flip it, but it's also going to be the new headquarters for the Hard Knock State. That's my personal development, business development, coaching, training, and counseling practice. Washington's a great place. It's just the rain. I was born and raised there. I just can't do the rain anymore. You know, the winters aren't too bad. They're pretty, you know, mild. You know, you're 40, 45 degrees, and if you're in the Seattle area, Western Washington, we really don't get a ton of snow unless you're up in the mountains. Snow that we do get, you're probably, you know, an inch or two, maybe. It's gonna here for a day and then gone tomorrow. Just creates a lot of havoc. But it's the constant dampness, the constant rain, 40 degrees, 45 degrees. I gotta tell you, it gets into your bones. And once you get cold, I mean, for me at least, I love the heat, sun devil kind of guy, you know, and every year that went by, more and more and more, the cold weather, the rain, the gray skies, I just got to get away. So here I am. I'm going to make a day's drive out of this here, and it's about GPS said it was 885 miles from Peoria, where I was staying, out to San Antonio. I'll be staying at a pretty cool little hotel over by the Alamo, and I'm not sure if any of you have seen the Alamo, but it's not quite cracked up to what the history books would lead me to believe. It's actually quite small, but a beautiful place and a special place. So here's the reality. A lot of talk out there about a housing crisis coming up here sometime in 2024. I think that if you bought recently, you just want to hold on, and maybe if you've bought, you know, 5-6 years ago, maybe even longer than that, hey, if you can find a place to stay and you're in an equitable position, like if the 2008 crash didn't take you down, some people are just now getting unburied from that, which is pretty crazy to think about, being it's all this time. But hey, some people just bought right at the wrong time. You know, some people don't have a choice of when they have to buy or can buy, and a lot of people just have a big disagreement with renting. I don't know why, but I'd rather own than rent myself. But when you get into a house, a lot of people think their dream, gosh, I got to get in this house. You know, this house is it's the American dream. It's what I want. You know, I got to have my own place. But you could always think about buying a condo too, or a townhouse. And the reason why I say that is I don't think people think it through of all the work it takes when you buy a house. You're your own maintenance man, you're your own maid, you're your own housekeeper, your own butler, you're your own yard maintenance guy, your own landscaper. And if you and your spouse are, or if it's just you don't know how to do all those things, you're going to have to pay for a contractor and pay people to do it. That right there is where leaves a lot of people broke. Takes a lot of people's money away from them. I was told when I had a very young age, when I was I think I was a junior in high school, maybe I was a senior, but I had a really good teacher. He was also my wrestling coach. And I remember driving a truck with him one day. He actually, we had to, as an elective in high school, I'm as old as a dinosaur, so I mean, back when I was in high school, they had, rifle club and construction and metal shop, and, you don't get that kind of stuff anymore. I think, you might get band and maybe pottery, right? Maybe finger painting is an elective, but I was in his truck with him, and I remember we were going to where the students were building structures. They were framing up sheds. And he says, Greg, I'm going to tell you something that's going to last a lifetime for you, but you gotta follow this direction. And it's, if you could work on your house and you could work on your own car, you'll save yourself a ton of money throughout life. I really took that to heart. I was in school, and even out of school, I was in the produce business, fruit and vegetables, grocery. I actually worked at farmers markets with fruit stands, and fruit stand is kind of a put down. It's kind of a derogatory term for the real produce purveyors, because a fruit stand is literally just a guy who opens a box and puts it under a pop-up tent, on the side of the road. But I would call them produce markets, and they're bigger, typically bigger than your regular produce departments. It's all local fruit as much as possible, and you do seasonal flowers, beauty bark, and then Christmas trees and during the holidays. But that's what I did primarily, and then I took a break from that, went into the construction business. Now, construction wasn't anything new to me. I've had two of my uncles were general contractors. One's passed, bless his soul. The other's about 80 years old. I think he's just about stopped swinging the hammer. He'll be 81 this year. But he still has his business, still has clients, and still goes out and does work. But that uncle taught me a lot about construction, a lot about remodeling, rehab. So when I was working in construction, started off as a laborer for a framing company as a subcontractor, and kind of did that for a while. Then they liked my work and liked how quick I was, and I never talked back. Kept my nose down, put my head to the grindstone, put the hammer to the anvil, and before you know it, they promoted me and started teaching me how to frame. And 3, 4, 5 months later, I'm framing houses, framing walls, and I loved heights, still kind of do. So I was the guy who would be framing up 3, 4 story apartment building, and they would throw me up at the top to separate and lock in, space out all the trusses, which is your roof essentially. And they weren't nailed down, they're dropped by crane, and then you have to break the straps that hold them all together and separate them out, and then you got to turn them upright. Well, somebody's got to go up to the top and space them out correctly, just like a stud, 16 inches on center. We call that a rat run. So you put a scab on top and just nail it so nothing moves with the wind or any shifting. Well, that was me. I was that guy. And of course, regulations back when I was in construction and framing isn't what it was today. We didn't wear harnesses, no safety ropes, that kind of stuff. Just run up there, and we had a rule: you were fired before you hit the ground. And it was kind of a running joke within the company, but I actually did see one of my buddies who I got into that job. I continued on with his career in construction. Now he's a building inspector for one of a very big city out here in Washington State. But I saw him fall from a third-story balcony because the hand railing had been put up around the patio, or the back porch. I guess that's what you would call it. I can't, kind of drawing a blank right now, but fell straight down to the ground. Luckily, he fell on a bush or something, and it broke his fall. He got right back up, no serious injuries. But that's the reason why harnesses and safety ropes and all that's highly important, and why nowadays, before crews are even allowed to build, if it's more than 2 stories, even on the second story, they got to put a railing up there, a safety railing, and they'll take that down, of course, as they build up, and it just goes higher. But then from framing, I went on and did concrete work, and then did remodeling and rehabbing, and for a company, and really liked that. I liked it because it wasn't just framing, it wasn't the same thing every single day. One day I could be hanging cabinets, next day I could be putting on a roof, next day siding, plumbing. We did it all. And that right there, I'll tell you, if you're a young person, man or woman, doesn't really matter. There's some terrific female carpenters out there, in fact, better than some men. And you can learn that skill. That is a life skill. And whether you own your house or you're looking for a career in construction, that will stick with you your whole life. So from there, I went back into the grocery business, and then went into automotive after that. But after 20 years of selling automobiles, 15 years with Toyota, and working in a few different dealerships, started off at a small 30-car lot, worked out of a single wide trailer, did that for about 4 or 5 years, then went on over to Toyota. Was with Toyota for 15 years. Came after, I think about, maybe 8 years with Toyota, I got promoted into sales management, where I ran a facet of the sales department, and then things changed. Our store was bought out by a global automotive company, and that job they didn't have, and my position they didn't have at all the other 300 dealerships all over the globe. So they phased me out. Could have still worked there, just gone back into sales, but I took it personal, which I shouldn't have done, and that's a key for you, a tip for you. If you are working for a good company, you got to roll with the punches sometimes, because if you do, they'll remember you, hopefully, if you're a good employee and you're a producer and you put up numbers. And then when the good times come back, they'll find a new home and a new position for you. Should have stuck with that, but again, I took it personally after 15 years and said sayonara, and that's when I opened up my coaching practice. And I was doing coaching and training salespeople already. And this store I worked at, I gotta tell you, this was no average size car lot. We were the largest automotive dealership in our entire state, and for Toyota, we were the largest in the entire Northwest at that period of time. And we held that title for years and years, probably a decade. We held that title. But I think during the height of it, and before we sold out to, I won't even mention the name, but that massive global conglomerate, I think our best month was like 725 units. And the month after I left, my boss texted me, the general manager texted me and said, "Hey, it's been 30 days after you left, we're down 200 units. Well, maybe I cut the wrong guy, huh? So I took a couple years off, went through, worked on myself, put money invested in myself, went through some really, I thought was pretty phenomenal I probably saved, maybe $80,000 versus going to an actual university, and I got a way better education. Marketing, sales, mindset, knowing people's personality types, knowing how to speak in front of people, speak on camera, and you don't get that kind of training in college. And so now, here I am. I'm going to be putting that all that education and all my everything I've known in the past, all my life experiences to work, and venture out on my own here in a different state. I've been doing the coaching thing on my own for a couple years, and it's been brisk, but it's not setting the world on fire like I had hoped it to. So I think a lot of that has to do with your environment that's around you, the people you surround yourself with. And I'm a father, divorced man, and 2 kids. My kids are grown. Daughter is 19. Son will be 24 this year. And so I figure, hey, I'm not even 50 years old. Time for me to go put the hammer to the anvil once again and go create another new thing and run with it. So here I am, driving off San Antonio, Texas. My parents used to live outside of San Antonio, and they lived out there for a year or two, and my dad got transferred back to Washington State. But I'd go out there and visit, and my wife at the time and my son, he was probably 3 years old. We would go out there and visit. 3 or 4 years old, we'd go out there and visit, and I just really fell in love with that whole San Antonio, New Brunswick area, even Austin. Austin's pretty cool to visit. I don't think I'd want to live there, but hey, you want to drive up there for a nice evening or a weekend, go see 6th Street. It's the live music capital of the world. It's a fun time. Maybe go get some good barbecue at the Salt Lick. But hey, so when you're flipping houses and you're looking for places to buy, look, it's really important that you don't just go out and, as my dad would say, have your money burning a hole in your pocket and jump on the first thing you see, because there's a lot of stuff that's hidden that you can't see. And I've been doing a lot of research on houses and what's primarily the things to look for in that area. It's Texas, South Texas, like San Antonio area is a pretty humid area. In the Northwest, we had, it rains, as I had mentioned earlier, it rains all the time, and it is also humid, nothing like the summer heat of the South, but that humidity with the constant rain and cold, damp weather all the time, if your house isn't well ventilated, you get this thing called black mold, and it's a surface mold that attaches to the wallboard in damp corners, dark corners, maybe where there's a nightstand or a plant or maybe a bookshelf, and you push that thing up an inch or two away from the wall, and you forget about it. 2 years later, you go pull that thing out to clean behind it. Darn it! Don't you know you got the black mold? So there's you got to deal with that, because if you don't, it can make your family sick, very sick. It's very unhealthy. In fact, going into a house that's got mold in it, regardless if it's black mold or anything else, you got to wear a mask, glove up, maybe even put on a hazmat suit if it's severe enough. Now, I mean, if you got just a little mold in a corner or something, you're probably not going to need any of that. I would recommend a mask, but because you definitely do not want to breathe that. But there's ways around it, I mean, not around it. You got to fix it. And I'll show you what to look for. And if we do end up buying a house that may have a little bit of mold, I'll show you how to correct that situation. Insects and rodents, man, that's the next thing you got to look out for. And that right there, you can't see anything, right? So they're all in the walls for the most part. And if if you see something like a termite that's flying around or walking on the kitchen counter, you got to know there's not just one termite. You know, that termite did not just happen to get in there by accident. And if just like a rat or a mouse, you see one, you know there's probably a lot more somewhere hiding, right? Creating their own little community inside your house. And so you got to get a professional out, have them inspect it. If there is anything, have them deal with it. If there's not, you want to make sure you be proactive and do preventative maintenance. If you decide to buy a house and there isn't an insect issue, just don't leave it. You know, you got to go around, you got to spray annually, inside, outside. And I'll tell you, a little thing to, people love plants, they love flowers, they love their gardens. But when those things, that foliage, that greenery gets too close to the house, you're inviting insects into your house. So every house I've ever owned, one of the first things I do is I go out along the outside perimeter of the exterior walls, and if the foliage or the yard and plants are pushing up to the side of the house, I clean all this out, and then I create about a 4 to 3 foot strip of dirt. I take all the grass out, if there's grass, any plants, and I do that all around the house. And then you spray all along the foundation, and then you do that again on the inside. You get an inside insect repellent, and then you do that again. And it's important when you do the inside to look at the labeling, make sure it's pet safe, pet friendly. Some stuff, some product is, some product isn't. And it's I gotta tell you, it'd be a really bad feeling. It's almost kind of like fertilizing your lawn, right? You fertilize your lawn, you let your golden retriever go out, play, and he's out playing with his toys, you're throwing the ball, playing catch, and that ball gets covered in his saliva and then hits the grass, and fertilizer gets on that, and the dog picks it up, puts it right back in his mouth, and then you got a sick dog who might die an early death because of cancer, you know. So those are things that you got to be careful for, and believe it or not, chemicals are nothing to play with, and neither is mold. So if your house does have that little bit of a mold issue, correct it right away. There's a product, the best product for that is called Kills, Killz, and it's a paint, and it is a mold, I don't know what it does, but it stops the mold from growing, stops it from adhering to the paint and the wallboard. And if there ever was an issue, you got to, of course, correct it, clean it. Sometimes you can get lucky, and wallboard has an exterior paper on the sheathing of the wallboard, and a lot of times the mold won't go past that paper. So good little trick is to get your utility knife, you know, like a box cutter, you know, your little utility knife, and go into a corner, cut a little 4-inch strip, pull back some of the paint, pull back some of that paper where you might see the mold from the wallboard, pull it back, and if it's not touching the wallboard, chances are you dodged a bullet and you don't have to replace your wallboard. Now, when that happens, you got to definitely clean the mold, and then with the bleach solution, and then you repaint it, sand it down, repaint it, put that Killz on it. You could do a Killz primer, and then you could do a Killz exterior paint. And with that too, you can mix color palettes just like regular interior paint. That's what it is. It's regular interior paint. Another reason for mold, and probably the most common reason anywhere where you would see a mold, would be a flood or a bad roof. And there's ways you can look at a house and you can see where the source is coming from and where the problem is coming from. If the mold is up high towards the ceiling, you got a roof issue. If it's down below, it's probably a damp issue. Now, if the whole house has it about a foot or two off the ground from the floor up, and it's on every single exterior wall inside, and every interior wall, bathroom walls, closet walls, all that kind of stuff. You may have a house that was in or is in a flood zone, and somebody maybe tried to clean it up as quickly as possible, threw it back on the market, or it just got moldy from all the moisture from being in a flood. So they put their house on the market and they sell it because they don't want to have to deal with that problem, and they don't have the money to deal with that problem. Realistically, I think if most people had the money to deal with the problems, they wouldn't be selling their house, they'd just fix it. Speaking of roofs, that's another thing you got to look for as well. Roofing could be very, very expensive. You're talking, if you have a contractor come out and they have to do a complete tear down and re-roof, if you're in an average size house, you're looking at $10, $15, maybe even $20,000, depending on the type of material that you're going to be using for your roof. That's a lot of money. That's a ton of money. You could buy a good used car for $15,000, one that will last you a long time. So that's the reason why learning how to do certain things is very important. I put a roof on my last house. House wasn't really large, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,250 square feet. In Washington State, you're allowed to go, if it's a composition roof and there's one layer of comp, the original roof is on there, you can re-roof and put an additional layer of comp on top of that and still be within code. If that's the case, and you need to re-roof and you're feeling up to do it yourself or want to learn how to do it yourself, and you don't want to have to pay for a complete tear-off, you could probably save if a roofing company comes out and just does a re-roof, you can probably save yourself a couple $1,000s. However, with roofing contractors, every single one of them is not going to recommend that because their money is made on the tear-off. Their money's made on the tear-off, their money's made on a whole new roof being installed. And so they don't get the big bucks, they don't get their gross profit they're looking for, their margins, just by doing a re-roof for the most part. Yeah, every once in a while you might run into a roofing company that has no problem with doing a re-roof. Most of them are going to talk you out of it. When I did my roof, I went just down to the Lowe's hardware store and I bought all the shingles and nails and everything I needed for it. All said and done, labor, materials, everything. Of course, no cost for labor because it was just me, but me and my son. I think it cost us about $4,500 right there. Gosh, I probably saved, $8,000 to $10,000 on a new roof. Siding, same thing. I replaced my siding. I had a couple bad boards. The house I just sold and moved out of, that they had back in the late 80s, Louisiana Pacific is a building material company, and they had an engineered siding. Everybody knows it as LP siding, and that stuff, when it first hit the market, it was the cat's meow. Everybody was going wild. It was inexpensive, it looked good, it had all the wood grain on it, and it was easy to work with, easy to cut. And once you know it, 10, 12, 20 years later, they misengineered their wood engineering, and those boards had an issue on the bottom of the siding where the water would not run off the siding, it would actually run underneath. It's just a style deflaw, and it would go up underneath the siding, and it would cause that engineered wood, which is essentially sawdust, fiberboard, and it's glued and adhered together and pressed down hard to create a solid substance. When moisture gets into that, it expands. And so LP everybody was buying LP siding back then in the late 80s, early 90s, and that was primarily the only siding you used on your house for the most part. Well, with that, everybody's houses are, the siding up in the Northwest started expanding. Everybody's having to replace siding. You have a siding contractor come out and do your siding on a house. Let's take the last house I sold, 1,250 square feet. You're going to probably be looking at, I don't know, at least $10,000 for new siding. The reality is, not every single board on that's bad. If you're a homeowner and you need to fix some siding, you don't necessarily have to replace all the siding right at once. You can go down Lowe's, you can get your new, James Hardy fiberboard siding, and you can switch that stuff out if you know what you're doing. Most people don't. Most people will look at it and be troubled with fear that they're going to make a mistake and their house is going to fall down, or they're going to create a mess that they can't fix without calling in a contractor. And then their biggest fear is they're going to call in the contractor, and now their bill's going to be double because now that contractor's got to correct a mess that they once fixed. So, learning how to do things yourself, great way to save money. And again, it's a life skill. A lot of these economists are saying that the housing market is going to crash. I think I hit on that a little bit and kind of jumped off topic. So learning these things are very important, because if you are going to stay in your house, if we do go through another recession, money for everybody is going to be tight. And you having to call in a contractor, that's probably the worst time you could do things like that, worst time, but it's Murphy's Law, whatever's going to go wrong will go wrong at the worst expected time, right? So you need to be prepared. I would prepare yourself now, financially, start build whatever nest egg you have, throw more in it, keep building it, and make sure you're not just putting all your money into investments. Make sure you're creating a war chest for yourself and socking some of that away, so in case the worst thing does happen, another big crash, you got something to rely on and fall back on in case if an emergency does happen. What's going to happen if you put all your money into investments right now? We do have another crash. Even if it's a housing crash, that's going to affect a lot more than just housing. You ain't going to get your money out because you ain't going to have any money. It's going to drop down. You're going to lose some money. Okay, and then you got to wait again for the cycle to go back to the uptick and have another bull market, and wait for equity to return, wait for investment gains to return, and then, but it's a long time, it's a long wait. I think a lot of 2008, we are, 16 years away from when that happened. So, another 20-year cycle. If you look at history of when recessions have hit, depressions have hit, crashes have hit, they're cyclical. And you can go back and you can look through history, and they're almost right on the nose. It's separated by a certain period of time, be it 10 years, 20 years, 15 years, and you can kind of almost see when it's going to happen just by looking at charts of the past. And it's always going to happen. Okay, you can't have good without the bad. That's with anything in life. So what we're going to do here is this is just, I think, the second video for this this series, this playlist. But the next stop will be doing driving around San Antonio, walking some properties, and looking for that right one. I'm hoping that I'm going to find that right one within 2 days. I've been doing a lot of research online. If you're online and you're out of state and you're looking to move to another state, you're on a lot of these MLS websites, realtor.com, all the other big names. I like realtor.com. That's a very user-friendly website. But Redfin's not in every area, but they have a great mobile app, and their website updates every 15 minutes. I don't know how many people I've talked to who've researched real estate a couple states away from where they're trying to relocate. They're using the wrong website, the wrong app, and it's all old information. They go down and they have a bunch of houses, 4 or 5 houses picked out to look at. They buy a plane ticket, get the hotel, get in touch with a real estate agent, go on down, and then they're like, hey, I want to look at all these houses. Sorry, they're not available. Those houses sold weeks ago. What I like about the Redfin app, Redfin's a great company too, especially if you're a seller or a buyer. It's a cut rate commission process, thing, and I like it as a way to retain a lot of my own profit, and I'll just keep a lot of money back in my pocket too. But they're a corporation, and so they have a set way of doing business, and it's the right way. There's not a lot of gray area like you would find with maybe an independent realtor who's in it for the biggest commission, and rightfully so, they should be. I am not knocking any realtors, agents, brokers. I think what you guys do is just amazing. And I myself, I will not go and do a for sale by owner without a real estate agent. Why? I don't want to go through and I don't want to become an agent. Okay, I don't want all that hassle. I don't have to go into an office, meet with clients. Man, you could be in real estate, still be an investor, still be in the real estate business, and not be a licensed agent. One thing I like about having a licensed agent is they're responsible for all the paperwork. If they miss a signature, if they forget to dot an I or cross a T, or they leave something out of the paperwork, and it doesn't fall on me, it falls on them and that company. And then it can be easily changed, easily corrected, because typically it's 2 realtors working together. However, if I did it myself, and there's a legal issue with legal paperwork, or missignatures, or misrepresentations, then that is solely on me, and they can come back, they can sue you, and you could lose it all. I know that from experience, not for me personally, but that's a story for another day. But I literally saw somebody firsthand buy a house in a very affluent neighborhood, fix it up, sell it. They did it by themselves. The buyers had an agent. They were looking for a way to, I guess they were looking for a way to, I don't know exactly. It wasn't, I guess they were looking for a way to get that house for free, essentially. And there was some misrepresenting in the advertising of the sale of that house, and that agent and the buyer, they bought it, and they came back and sued the people who sold it to them, and they got that house free and clear. It's a shame, but it happens. That's the reason why you always want to use an agent. So, not necessarily you have to be an agent, but use one every time. It'll save yourself a lot of headache. And when it comes down to buying houses, you really you don't want to overpay. And if you're looking for flips, man, going in and buying a house that's that you can rehab and you can fix up and resell, be very careful, because you don't know. Be very careful, because you may be in over your head. If you don't know what the cost of materials are, what exactly you're going to need, if you can't look at something and plan that all out. I could take a notepad, I could walk around the house with a tape measure, and I could price everything out for all the materials that I'm going to need before I even buy the house. And then what you want to do is you want to look at an equal house that's already fixed up. A comp is what they call it, and realtors call it. So essentially, that a comp is a comparable houses in that same neighborhood, and what do they sell for? Now, if you got a house that is pristine inside and out, homeowners had it for say 10 years, and they just took immaculate care of it. They took their shoes off before they came in their house. They maintained it to a T. They did everything what they should do it. They replaced the appliances when they should have done it. Replaced their furnace, their water heater serviced. Little things. That house, when that sells, obviously it's going to bring a higher price than the ones that don't have those. So you want to find out what those comps are, because when you fix and flip your house, you're going to want to sell it for what, somebody's the next buyer, they're going to want to come in, they're not going to want to do nothing to that house. And that's the last thing. I mean, when you're shopping, if you're a renter right now and you're shopping for an apartment building or an apartment, and you go out and you take a look at a bunch of different apartment complexes to find that one apartment you're going to rent or lease, you're not going to go look at you're not going to take something that's half-assed, right, where it's got dirty carpet, holes in the walls, marks on the walls, the countertops are all marked up, and the counter, the cabinetry is all scuffed up. And you're not going to rent a place like that unless if it's dirt cheap. Okay, well, it's the same thing when you're buying a house, right? When people buy houses, they want a turnkey. They want to open the door, they want to back up the moving truck, they want to get their life going, and they don't want to have to, in most cases they can't afford to take 2-3 weeks, a month to go in and refurbish a house in order for them to make it livable up to their standards to move their stuff into there. Most people just want to move right in and get on with their life. That's the way it should be, right? So that's exactly what we're going to do, and I will hit you up again as we get closer